Leadership and governance. One cannot occur without the other. But what does true leadership look like? It involves tough decisions, uncomfortable conversations, diligent efforts, and leaning across the aisle for the greater good. For decades, we as county officials have fought tirelessly for sustainable funding mechanisms that allow counties to provide critical programs and services, and that empower counties to offer programming that touches our citizens and our state's future. This legislative session, what began as a hallway conversation, evolved into the signing of Act 12, a historic shared revenue bill that will fund our counties for generations to come.
I served on the county board for 10 years, so some of my closest relationships with other local levels of government are my county executive, my constitutional officers, and the county board members that live in my home county. So I would say we've had these discussions really for a long time where they consistently said we worry about the cost of mandates, how do we ensure that we have good services? But then we had this massive increase in inflation and the pandemic hit. I think it really brought home that local governments deliver so many more of the services than people remembered. So it was pretty easy when the county came and started talking to me saying, hey, we've got all these priorities that we need to figure out, and we probably have to figure a different way to pay for them. I think that there is no group that deserves more credit than the Counties Association and the individual county boards of supervisors and the places that have a county executive. In my own county, County Executive Jonathan Delagrave really talked to me already last summer saying, Robin, look, we can continue to figure out how to make it work, but we need to do something different if we're going to continue to be the great place that we are lucky enough to live in.
First of all, it's a great bill and a great win for the people of Wisconsin. Some of the issues as we got together and started to hammer were issues that were problematic on both sides. The Milwaukee was being required to do some things that the city of Milwaukee that they did not want to do. I was asked to do some things around voucher schools that, frankly, standing alone, I probably wouldn't have done. And on the other side, it was the same thing. The idea that somehow we weren't didn't need a referendum to make this happen. That was troubling for the other side. So there's a lot of big troubling things that everybody said at the end of the day, we have to get this done. And we did.
So I think the biggest thing for me was I was not up last time around. So I spent a whole lot of time running around the district, helping other candidates. And what I was hearing, number one, is first it started off with my towns association. They were running out of money to the point where they couldn't fund EMS. And we were in crisis mode. We're talking to the towns association, my municipalities. They were to the point where we've got them paving over 135-year-old infrastructure because they don't have the money to actually do the repairs and provide the services that they need. And then talking with a former colleague of mine, Don Frisky, who is now the county board chair at Lincoln County. Don's like, Mary, we're in crisis. We can't keep people because we can't afford to pay them. And now we're to the point where we're cutting services. I mean, we're as lean as we can get. So I reached out to the Towns Association, the League of Municipalities, and the Counties Association. And I'm like, what do we do? And they're like, we've got ideas. Let's sit down and have a conversation. And that's really how it started, is just our local units of government doing a really good job at using the dollars we've given them. But we've held them so lean for so long, there was nothing left.
Well, this really started last summer in August. I was working with the Counties Association with one of my counties that's in kind of financial trouble, looking for ideas, seeing if they would come down and maybe assist with the county. And I asked the County Association, is anybody in the legislature working on maybe a long-term fix for this, i.e. shared revenue? And, obviously the name Mary Felzkowski came up. And I kid you not, I was getting ready to go into little city of Hillsboro and pulled over the side of the road. I was hauling a gravity box and called Mary, and I said, Mary, I just got off the phone with Kyle, and I think I understand we're going to work on some type of thing with shared revenue. I said, I'd love to be your partner in the assembly, and that's kind of really where it started. And The interesting part about it, some of those first meetings with the counties association, the towns, the League of Municipalities started, late November. As soon as the election was over, we started to work. And I think what was so rewarding is we had all three, local government organizations around a table. And one of the things Mary and I first said was, the three of you have to be on the same page. You've got to kind of put things aside and come up with a common goal. And I think what's refreshing is all three did that. And I think you saw that throughout the process because, the public sees one thing, but they don't see all the work that was done behind the scenes, all the hours and hours of meetings. And I think that's one of the things that I think we need to highlight as well.
Yeah, so we were in a very unique position going into this budget cycle with almost a $7 billion surplus. And fortunately, Senator Felzkowski and Representative Kurtz were sort of working on this, trying to make, help out local levels of government, small counties, townships, counties and local units of government which hadn't had really increases in shared revenue in 20 years. And there was quite a disparity between, what some of the bigger counties, some of the bigger cities were getting compared to what some of the smaller townships, some of the villages, and small counties were getting. So because we had this unique opportunity with a large surplus, it gave us this opportunity to actually, make investments in counties, local governments to make sure that they can provide the services that they need to provide, local EMS, fire, make sure they can maintain their roads, pave their roads, and just help, fight against, the inflationary pressures that businesses are seeing and that small governments are seeing just to pay their employees to keep them there. So it was a unique time. It was great that we had that surplus so we could, work towards getting a bipartisan agreement to make, historic investment in local governments.
One of my political mentors is a woman named Jean Jacobson. She was the county exec when I first got on the county board, and she would always say a phrase that the world is run by those who show up. And this is a prime example where for all the part-time county board supervisors who do an excellent job, you don't focus on what's happening in Madison. You have groups like WCA to do that for you. So I think you should be really proud of the job that WCA did leading this effort. Perhaps the cities and the towns got a little bit more of the attention because they have more members, but the people who should get the most credit is WCA and all the work that their team did in Madison negotiating with us and kind of going through the process.
Well, it's interesting. I ran for re-election on this issue. It was a top priority. I said it a million times on the campaign trail. And we had so much of the hard work in the state of Wisconsin is done by municipalities, counties, and townships. And whether it's plowing the roads or police, fire, health, it doesn't matter, courts. And so all those things are extraordinarily expensive, extraordinarily important. And for years, nothing has happened around shared revenue, and we had the money to do it. And so every citizen in the state of Wisconsin got a win out of this, every single one. Better services, more efficient services, you name it. And it's going to last. It's good. It's good for everybody.
I think that's that component of the bill, tying this to the sales tax and the economy of the state, I think is the most not talked about part of the bill, but I think it's the largest part of the bill. Because in the past, local units of government, their funding, whether your business flourishes or not, is not relevant to them because their funding has nothing to do with that. Now, how businesses flourish and the success of local units of government or local businesses directly impacts their funding. So this is great because we tied it to the sales tax. And in the last 20 years, sales tax has gone up an average of about 3.2%. CPI has gone up about 2.1. Now, there has been years where it's gone backward. So locals have to plan for that also, because if we get a decline in the sales tax, it's going to be a decline in their shared revenue. But the odds are very much in their favor, and this will allow them to not get caught up in the inflationary pressures and help them offset that. But tying it to the state's economy, I think, is one of the best parts of this bill, because we all then are working towards the same goals of promoting the state, local businesses, and increased revenue.
I think overall and over time, the municipalities, counties, towns have always been pretty big players in the world of politics in Wisconsin, and they're active. They've always been active, and so I give a lot of the credit to the organizations that represent them. I mean, it's not like they just appeared on the pedestal this time around. They've been here every time, and when we know somebody's speaking for thousands of other people or thousands of other representatives, people listen. And so the money was there, the timing was right, we got it done, thank God.
So when I was elected to the county board, was sort of when the levy caps were first put on, and that put great pressure on us, but also a great opportunity for us to look for, finding ways to, combine departments, find cost savings, sort of right-size the county government. When I was there, I was the chair of the HR committee. So we looked at ways at, reforming how we provide those benefits to employees, provide, cost-effective benefits, things like that. We privatized a nursing home, things like that, to make county government more efficient in Sheboygan County. But at some point, if your revenue isn't going up, or going up only marginally by the new construction, if your county's not growing, at some point you need more revenue to meet those demands. And I think a lot of counties around the state have done what Sheboygan County has done, over the last maybe couple decades, trying to find efficiencies because of the pressure placed on them with levy caps. But there comes a time when, that revenue stays flat, and so this provides us a great opportunity to, going forward, tie shared revenue with the rather large increase that we put in this budget, and then tie it to growth in the future, to economic growth, to provide increases going forward into the future.
Well, let me tell you, it wasn't easy. There were an awful lot of times throughout the process where I thought it could potentially fall apart and we would just live to fight another day. But to the credit of everybody who was in the room, we kept coming back. There was yelling, there was screaming, there were tears, right? But at the end of the day, there was a product that we could all walk out arm in arm saying, I didn't get everything that I wanted, but I got an awful lot of steps forward. And I think that's what we should be focused on, is in the world of argument and anger on both sides of the political aisle, where we have each extreme kind of pushing us apart. I think this is an example where sometimes you got to let that part set aside and focus on getting things done for your constituents. And that's what happened in this case.
One of the things that's really critical here is that we have state and local government working together, have a strong economy. Only way we could have done that in a good way is how we're doing it now, by increasing the resources for them through shared revenue.
So, one of the big questions we've gotten is, well, where did you come up with this new formula? Because we had our caucuses, when we first started talking about the plan for shared revenue, they said, well, we can't support it if it's the old formula because it's totally broken. And pretty much all three associations agreed that we needed some new formulas. So our goal was to close the gaps in the shared revenue formula, make it more fair, and then give pretty healthy inflationary uppers. So how do we figure that out? So we can use LFB, Legislative Fiscal Bureau, to do that. But we actually, this is where we leaned on the Counties Association more and Forward Analytics. They ran scenario after scenario after scenario and tweaked it every time for us and did an amazing job. And I'm like, I didn't know where to start. Like, if you would have asked me how to do that, I would have went, no clue here. But it was all three groups working together and deciding, what was fair, and sticking together on that and compromising, okay? Because I'm sure each group would have liked a little bit more here and there, but they compromised, and I think everybody came out a winner, and that's amazing. But Forward Analytics was the key to really getting all those formulas done, and God bless Dale and everybody for his hard work, because it was amazing.
One thing I always said with a lot of interviews was, people would ask, do you think this is going to get done? And at the end of the day, I always said, yes, this is too important of a piece of legislation to let it fail. Because one thing we haven't really touched on, there was a lot of points along the way that this could have easily broke down. And at times, I'm not going to lie, I thought this might be it. But, we regrouped. We said, let's have another meeting. Let's take a break. And we did. And I think that was the important thing. But getting everybody together to say, in the end, this is just too important to let it fail. And I think everybody collectively realized that.
Yeah, I was very concerned at times. We're wrapping a lot of things into this bill and trying to negotiate with the governor, and sometimes it's hard to find consensus across party lines. And in the process, we're also trying to fix sort of the impending challenges that we're facing, the city of Milwaukee County, which, leveraging that, getting the support of, the county executive and the mayor of the city of Milwaukee, I think helped things. And, I just felt this was the one time where we actually had the revenue available to actually make real change in the way we provide, support to our local levels of government. So it was great that we finally got enough votes rallied to support this, and that we got, the governor on board and a nice bipartisan compromise to make sure that we got this done.
Really quite simple. This is not a issue of legacy for anybody that was involved in this decision. What it is, it was the right thing to do for Wisconsin, and it's going to impact people forever. And that's really critical.
I'm involved in an awful lot of groups where you pay your dues and you hope that the people who are in charge of the group that you're part of are doing their very best. You could not be any more proud of the job that WCA did. They were in the room. How often has it been that local government had a seat at the table where decisions were being made? This is a prime example where WCA was the first group that we sat down with. They were the ones who helped to generate a lot of the ideas. So as far as making sure we have people who are trustworthy, you should know that every single person in the Capitol trusts WCA to do the right thing. I know you do because you're obviously active members in the group, but I also think it's really important for us to remember that WCA is a national leader. They're somebody that I talk about when I talk to my colleagues around the country. They don't have the same kind of relationship that we do. They don't have the same level of advocacy that we do. So when you think about being lucky to be involved in WCA, you should really talk to your counterparts around the country and realize that Wisconsin is a special place. WCA is a special body. It's because of the good work that they do. And you should look at everybody around and say thank you.